we did last week, we talked about the other system last week. I had to show you about a bit of biomes, and then basically everything we'll be talking about, it's ecology, all right? So today, we need to go to the part of the ecosystem itself, and when I started talking about the functioning of the ecosystem, I make guys to understand that the ecosystem itself has both is divided into two components. This is biotic component and abiotic component. Okay, so reason why they call this functioning of the ecosystem is just part of the biotic component. Remember, the biotic component is basically the living component. Living component. Why this guy named abiotic is the non-living component. Okay, so in summary, what we are after today, what we are really after today is this guy here, the functioning of the ecosystem. And I'm just going to show you what you just need to know, what you need to understand, and then we'll solve all the questions that you usually ask in that way. And that's the end about this functioning of the ecosystem. All right, so I'm going to take this up. I just want to use this to take us back to the thing I started before coming in down here. All right, so let's roll together now. When they say functioning of the ecosystem, we all understand that ecosystem has to do with the community of both living and non-living organisms, okay? And how to do with their environment, all right? So now we're going to deal with the functioning of the word ecosystem. Now, when you talk about the function of the ecosystem, look at things we want to talk about there. We want to talk about food chain. We want to talk about food web, okay? And then ecological pyramid. Ecological pyramid. And that's it. But we can't talk about all these things without knowing basically so many other things. Okay? What are the things we want to know now? Let me tell you. We want to know that the energy for the ecosystem comes from the what now? From the sun. Okay? It comes from the what now? From the sun. All right? It comes from the sun. So now let's start. What are those factors that are associated with what? The ecosystem. The first one we talk about is what? Autotroph. Autotroph, okay. Next one is heterotroph. And then third one is decomposers. Please follow me. Autotroph, heterotroph, decomposers. Autotroph, heterotroph, decomposers. So what are the autotroph? Very simple. We know that autotroph are people or living organisms that manufacture their own food. Living organisms that manufacture their own food. Now, through what process? Photosynthesis and chemosynthesis. Photosynthesis and chemo what? Synthesis. Photosynthesis and chemosynthesis. Okay? Photosynthesis and chemo what? Synthesis. So photosynthesis has to do with what we call the light energy. The light energy, that is a process by which green plants manufacture their own food through the help of what? Sunlight. All right? Through the help of what? The sunlight trapped by what? By chlorophyll. Do you understand? So they use light what? Energy. They use light energy, okay? Why these guys use chemical energy? All right. So that's for the autotrophic guys. So all autotroph, they call them all autotroph. All autotroph are known as producers. They are known as what? Producers. All autotrophs are known as producers, okay? Then all autotrophs are known as what? Producers, because they are the one who get the source of what? Energy directly. They are the one who get the source of energy directly. Are we together now? So we call them what? Autotrophs are known as what? Producers. Now let's go down to the what? Heterotroph. Heterotroph. Who are they? They do not manufacture their own food. They do not manufacture their own food. Manufacture their own food. And they are called, they do not manufacture their own food, and they are called what? Consumers. They are called consumers. We call them consumer. Me and you, we are consumer. You're a consumer, I'm a consumer. We don't manufacture food. We depend on the autotrophic living organism to produce food for us, and then we consume what? The food. Are we good now? So, but however, how many types of consumers do we have? It's not 3, we have 4. We have 4 types of consumers. 4. We have the primary consumers, okay? The primary consumers. The primary consumers are herbivorous animals, herbivores. The primary consumers are herbivores. Who are the herbivores? Herbivores are living organisms that feed on plants. Living organisms that feed on what? On plants are known as herbivores. Example is your cattle, your sheep, your goat. Those guys are typical what? Herbivorous animals. Your good herbivorous what now? Animals. Are we together? Yeah, are you with me now? So your good herbivorous what? Animals. Primary consumers are herbivores. Now we got secondary consumers. Secondary consumers. All right? What are the secondary consumers? Secondary consumers are small carnivores. Small carnivores. Example, toad. A toad is a carnivore. A toad is a carnivore. And you need to correct something. When you hear carnivore, carnivore can be divided into 3. Okay? Insectivorous, piscivorous, piscivorous, and then they call it cannibalism or carnivorous. Insectivorous means they feed on what now? Insects. Okay? Remember, carnivore generally without telling you that if you're a carnivore, you mean animal that feed on what? On flesh. You good with me? But if you tell yourself you're an insectivorous, it means that you are just to feed on insect alone. That you're still feeding on the flesh of something else. Do you understand me? Piscivorous, animals that feed on their own what now? On fishes. That means when a juvenile is feeding on the fingerlings. Did you get it? Juvenile feeding on fingerlings. You get it? So, then, they call this one, they call it carnivores or cannibalism. So, is these 3 that we know as what? Carnivores. The 3 of them. Insectivorous, piscivorous, and then they call themselves the carnivores too. Now, please note, these guys are your secondary what now? Consumer. They're also your tertiary what? Consumers. Tertiary consumers. Example, these are now what now? The big what? Carnivores. The big carnivores like the lion, the tiger, you know, like that. And then the 4th one is called the quaternary. The quaternary consumer. The quaternary consumers. Who are the quaternary consumers? Who are they? Who are the quaternary consumers that call themselves the omnivores? Omnivores. Omnivores. And we also have some large carnivores here too. Who is an omnivore? Omnivore means they feed on both plants and what? Animals. A good example of omnivore is man, rat, okay, man, rat, your pigs, okay, man, rat, pigs, they are very good what? Omnivores. Are we together now? These are typical example of what? Omnivores. So, again, the food, again, the old, what am I going to say? The whole thing we've been talking about so far, we're talking with autotroph, heterotroph, and what? Decomposers. Those are the biotic part that affect your what? The ecosystem. Okay, we talk about the autotroph, heterotroph, and the decomposers. We've talked about the autotroph. We said that the autotroph, they manufacture their own food by themselves. They manufacture their own food by themselves through what process? Photosynthesis and chemosynthesis. Photosynthesis and chemosynthesis. Okay? And then, but wherever, for the heterotroph, they do not manufacture their own food by themselves, and they are what? Consumers. They're known as consumers. I make it to understand that. How many consumers do we have? We got primary consumers, we got secondary consumers, we got tertiary consumers, and we got quaternary what? Consumers. The four of them are the major types of what? Consumers. Who are the primary consumers? Herbivores. What is an herbivorous animal? Who are the herbivorous animals? They are animals that feed both on, they feed on flesh, they feed on plants only. They feed on plants only. Okay? Animals that feed on plants only. So a good example of that is your cattle, your sheep, your goat. Okay? They feed on what? On plant. Your secondary consumer are small carnivorous animals. I talk about it like toad, like your small fishes, you know. So those are good examples. Tertiary consumers are your big carnivorous what? Organism. They're your big carnivorous organism. And examples, your lion and what? Your tiger, etc. Del much. Then your quaternary consumers is your omnivores. They could either be omnivores or large what? Now carnivores. Who are the omnivores? They feed on both plants and what? An animal. They feed on both plants and animals, okay? And example of such is man, rat, and pigs. Now, let's move to this third guys. They call themselves the decomposers. They're known as the decomposers. Decomposers. Some of you used to mistake decomposer for scavengers. Decomposer and scavenger are two different guys. Scavengers, decomposers. Now see, who are these decomposers? Decomposers are people or living organisms that feed on dead and what? Decay. Living organisms that feed on dead and decay substances or dead bodies. Look at it. A good example is your what? Is your bacteria. Fungi. Why scavengers? They feed on freshly dead organisms. Organisms that just got dead. Freshly. Even some of the example of them is your vultures. A vulture is a scavenger. It's not a decomposer. It's a scavenger. That's like they say, go scavenge. Go get something. Okay? Another example of them is your hyenas. Freshly prepared organism is what they feed on. So please, we need to get the error out. This one is dead and decayed. It will have gotten dirt and then decayed. And then people who does that is what? Bacteria and what? Fungi. Extracellular what now? Digestion. That's what we call it. Extracellular digestion is what we call it. Okay? Sometimes some people will tell you that decomposers are known as phytoremediator. That means they help to recycle things, and which is true. All right? So they help to kind of recycle things, which is very true. They call them, let me write the word, sometimes they call them phytoremediators. It's on the body, phytoremediators, because they do the job of recycling. That's their job. All right? So, get to understand it that decomposers, their job is they feed on dead and decay. While a scavenger is a freshly dead thing. Sometimes even your scavenger tend to kill it themselves and eat before they tend to feast on it. But you're not going to see them going back to what is already been killed and dead and they feasted on it then you expect them to go back to it maybe the next day or the third day when it has decayed. Nah, they don't do that. We're good? All right. So that brings us to the point, after your understanding of this, your understanding of these three things, these three factors I've mentioned, autotroph, heterotroph, decomposers, making you to tell you that the main source of energy is the sun. They will now break it down and talk about this big brother here. We'll talk about this guy. We'll talk about food chain, okay? We'll now talk about food chain. Are you with me now? Now, this is where I want you to get the food chain. Food chain is defined as the linear. This word has to be there. For those of you writing Waec, this has to be there. For those of you that are writing Jamb, you will see it. This is defined as the linear feeding relationship. Linear feeding relationship that shows the transfer of energy from one living organism to another. Are we together? From one living organism to what? To another. It shows the linear feeder relationship. It's defined as a linear feeder relationship that shows the transfer of energy from one living organism to what? Another. Now, since this is his job, now who are the members? The members of the food chain, members of the food chain. Number one, members of the food chain, number one is very simple. We call them what? Number one, we call them the producers. Okay? Number two, we call them the consumers. So there's no point of me repeating it. You already know what I'm talking about now. And number three, we call them what? The decomposers. All right. Let's now see. Let's take a typical example of this. Typical example. We have grass to grasshopper. Grasshopper to toad. And then toad to what? To snake. Now, grass to grasshopper, grasshopper to toad, toad to what? To snake. Now I need to get something right. This one here, this arrow here shows the arrow is for the flow of what? Energy. The arrow means flow of what? Energy. Now, it shows that the flow of energy goes from the producers down to the what? To the consumers. Then, the producer gets the energy from the what? From the sun. The producer gets the energy from the what? From the sun. Grass to grasshopper, grasshopper to toad, toad to snakes. Now, the arrow only represents the flow of energy. The arrow represents the flow of energy. Then, this does not mean this one eats this one eat this one, this one eat this one. No. What this arrow is just showing that there's a flow of energy from the producer down to the what? To the consumer. And as we move from one stage to what? To another stage, it's called what? Now, trophic what? Level. So some books will say each successive stage in a food chain, each successive stage in a food chain is known as what? Answer is what? Trophic what? Level. As we move from stage 1 to stage 2, is known as what? Trophic what? Level. Next thing we need to know about this place again is this. Very simple. Ain't no time for that. is that as we move from the stage 1 to stage 2 in the trophic level, there's going to be what we call what now? Loss of what? Energy. And that brings us to this thing called what now? The laws of conservation. It brings us to what is known as what? The laws of conservation. The laws of conservation of energy. That brings us to the laws of conservation of what? Energy. What does it say? Now, I know we got 3 laws, but here we only need 2. One of the first laws says is that, some people say it's the law of thermodynamics, okay? But the first law says that energy can never do what? Be created, not what? Destroyed. But it can be transformed from one place to what? To another. Some will say it can be transformed from one form to what? Another. How does that first law align to the food chain? Very simple. It means that as we go from grass to grasshopper, grasshopper to toad, toad to snake, energy is being transferred from grass to grasshopper, grasshopper to toad, toad to what now? To snake. The energy is not being destroyed, but it's just being transformed from one place to what? To another. What's it being transformed from? From the grass to grasshopper, grasshopper to toad, toad to what now? To snakes. And that's why they've asked this question. They say use the law of thermodynamics or use the law of conservation of energy to explain an example of a word, of a food chain. What you're going to write is very simple. Just state the law. You state the law, which is the law states that energy can neither be created nor what? Destroyed, but can be transformed from one form to what? To another. And then, as seen in the food chain, energy is being transformed from grass to what? To grasshopper, grasshopper from what now? To toad. Where is the energy derived from? From the sun. Simple. You've explained the law. First law explained. We're good. Now, let's go to the second law. That's the first law. The second law. What's the second law going to say? Second law is going to just be direct. It's saying the truth. It's just saying that energy can never be 100% in the what? In the living organism. Why? Because the energy has been lost to 2 things. Look at it. Heat and what? Respiration. We always say heat alone, but it's heat and what? Respiration. Heat and what? Respiration. All right? It's heat and what? Respiration. Look at it. Now let's go. As we go, immediately the grass gets let's say the grass gets 10,000 kilocalories of energy. It is energized. Big guy. The grass is full of energy. At this point, the guy will now say, it's time for me to first obey the first law. He obeys the first law and gives it to the grasshopper. Immediately gives it to the grasshopper obeys the law, transferred to the nest. As you see it like that, as it moves from grass to grasshopper, energy is dissipated. Energy is what now? Is lost. If 10,000 kilocalories was collected by grass, 5,000 kilocalories will be collected by what? Grasshopper. Why? Because energy has been lost to what now? Heat and what? Respiration. Do I have a question? Do I got a question? So, that tells you that who owns the highest form of energy? The producer. Who owns the lowest form of energy? The last member of the what? Of the food chain. Are we together? This means that, now listen, this means that at the end of the whole journey in the food chain, the person who owns the highest number, of energy, answer, the producer. Who owns the lowest amount of what? Energy? The last member of the food chain. Which means that if there was a decomposer here, the decomposer has the lowest amount of what? Energy. Are we together? Are we good? Good. So I've used the 2 laws to explain the what? The food chain. Are we together now? Are we together now? Now, food web. Okay, food web.